Story 1. That you have to stand by family no matter what. The day I decided to keep my distance from toxicity was the day I started to heal my childhood trauma. Being related to you doesn't automatically make them good for you. Story 2. I used to believe that given the opportunity, people will do the right thing. After recent events, I believe that given the opportunity, most people will do the lamest, most selfish thing possible. Story 3. Used to believe that individual people doing their part could stop climate change. Then realized no matter if most of the world's population did their part, it would barely do anything when corporations and governments still enact anti-climate policies. Story 4. If you're a genuinely good person, then at the end of the day, people will see it and treat you the same way. People often treat genuinely nice people extra poorly. Story 5. That a person working a normal, full-time job could support their family in a middle-class fashion instead of living paycheck to paycheck in a solidly precarious fashion. Story 6. I spent all of grade school thinking I was ugly. Turns out I have resting bitch face, which, when coupled with social anxiety, makes me seem really unapproachable. Story 7. I used to think it was morally incorrect to be gay. I didn't have a problem with gay people as far as any action. I never spoke negatively about the gay kids or supported any bullying of them, nothing like that. I just thought they were misguided, but it was still fine to be their friend and definitely wrong to be cruel or discriminatory to them, which is now extremely embarrassing and extremely regrettable. Obviously, there's not a thing wrong with it. Story 8. The goodness of people. Everything happens for a reason. Karma. People get what they deserve. A middle-class life is possible. Hard work will pay off. Loyalty will be repaid. Story 9. In the 1980s, I believed that welfare fraud was widespread, and millions of lazy Americans were living off the system, cheating all of us taxpayers. The actual cheating numbers are pitifully low compared to what we were all told back then. Story 10. You just have to work hard for what you want, and anything is doable. You just need to put in the work. Also known as meritocracy in society as a worker or human. It's a complete sham. Story 11. I used to believe that most people use evidence to form opinions instead of the other way around, so when they are wrong, the right argument can make them start being less wrong. Evidence says I was wrong about that. Story 12. That marijuana was dangerous and leads to harder, more dangerous drugs. The latter part can be true in some cases, but I have never seen it been offered anything besides marijuana when in a group hanging out. Story 13. Believed your choices in life impact your experiences after death. Now, I don't think there is anything to experience at all, you just end entirely gone. I no longer think that bad people will pay for sins in death. There is no reward for being good. Only God can judge. No, it's up to us to hold each other to a standard. The only reward for kindness should be the fact that you helped another. I hope I'm right. Story 14. The moon landing. I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but the footage being reviewed by experts and the fact that we do not have the technology anymore to go to the moon is just too many facts for me. Story 15. Humanity. Government. Teachers, doctors, police, dentists, people I pay money to, people I trust with my money, women, men, friendships. Hard work helps you move up. Basically, every aspect of life. Dogs are awesome though. Story 16. I used to think that the vast majority of people were good-hearted, but that many of them were misinformed. Now I think that most people are mostly selfish, mediocre, short-sighted, and willing to be dishonest within some limits. In short, without being evil, they are morally disappointing. This applies to all, independently of affluence, beliefs, or origin. There are enough good people that you can find them and surround yourself with them if you want to. But there aren't enough good people to say humanity is good. And now the news doesn't baffle me anymore. Story 17. I used to believe in the good in people, that they want to do what is good for everyone. I realize now all anyone wants to do is own the liberals as their society collapses. Story 18. That everyone is a blank slate and capable of great things, or at least being a functional member of society. After working at a hospital for a few years, I fully believe there are people who are just genetically destined to fail. They can have the perfect situation and circumstances and still mess it up. Story 19. Love is a choice built day by day, one hug at a time. Sharing joys and pains bit by bit can be eroded away by selfishness, greed, and apathy. It's a hard choice, but in the long run, I don't regret any of the love I've given. Story 20. I grew up in a working class area. I hated being looked down on and the working class being treated as stupid. The working class was not stupid, and that was a hill I would die on. But in the last 10 years, I watched them be led by the nose to do exactly what the far right, Putin, and Murdoch wanted with not a spark of critical thinking the whole time. Story 21. I used to be one of those cringe, anti-religious atheists, always asking, well, how do you prove God is real, huh? And just generally being really obsessed with logic and super annoying. Now I'm better. I only really dislike pseudoscience and ghost stuff, like psychics and mediums. Everything else is fine, and I can understand why people are so concerned about their religious freedom being silenced. Story 22. Blood is thicker than water. I was reminded every time my relatives hurt me emotionally and, well, guess what? I learned how to not care about them anymore. I told my mom that whoever is good to me is my family. Story 23. That everyone gets a happy ending eventually. That hard work will eventually get you everything you want. Sometimes you try your damnedest, and it won't be enough. That was a tough life lesson to learn, but I'm glad I did. Story 24. Mormonism. I even did a mission for them. I was deep in that rabbit hole. In retrospect, I think it was a valuable experience. I'm not sure if I would really comprehend the power of indoctrination and Plato's cave if I hadn't experienced it. Story 25. I used to be so religious, I wanted to be a priest. Not a nun. Priest. Yeah, the Catholic Church had some opinions about that, and I no longer support organized religion at all, and the jury is out about God. Story 26. I don't know if I would say I strongly believed in God, but I used to identify as a Christian and attended church regularly. It is weird to look back at that time in my life now, because these days I see very little value in organized religion and see no reason to believe in gods. I don't judge others if that's their thing, but it holds no relevance, value, or interest for me anymore. Story 27. Hard work pays off. Absolutely not anymore. You can do everything that is asked of you, put in all the hours, while some others get things handed to them for their looks, personality, or knowing someone. Simple. Life isn't fair. If you have a chance to take a shortcut to succeed, you should do it. Story 28. Organized religion. It drove me to atheism for more than 4 years. Turns out it's so simple. Just sit down and be quiet for 20 minutes a day. All you need will be revealed to you. That is all that is required for you to see. There is nothing that can shake my faith now. Story 29. When I was younger, I used to believe being an adult was going to be full of freedom, stress-free, and fun. I definitely got a reality check once I became an adult myself. Story 30. That choosing a political side matters. Nothing has gotten significantly better no matter who is in office, and the cost of living continuously goes up. Story 31. The idea of having it all. Thinking that achieving complete balance in every aspect of my life is possible, and eventually realizing that priorities and adjustments are necessary depending on life stages. Story 32. Prior to 2016, I truly believed both Democrats and Republicans wanted the best for the country. They just had different ideas on how to get there. Now, I don't believe that at all. Story 33. Capitalism. I'm not anti-capitalist, but I used to be an edgy libertarian type. I feel like the right has latched onto all these social issues that they are forcing themselves to get angry about. And, as it turns out, I'm not okay with people being homeless or desperately poor. I think capitalism can be uplifting at the micro level, but it is cold and dispassionate at the macro level, like many other systems. Story 34. I naively believed for a very long time that kindness and hard, meaningful work would be rewarded. I now see how much the opposite is true, at least under a capitalist regime. Story 35. That Democrats are good people. Then Obama fined me $500 a year for being too poor to buy his expensive healthcare plan. You Democrats want to convince me you're not evil? Then pay me back. Story 36. I used to believe that growing up meant finding stability and answers. Now I know it's just a highly anticipated chaos with more responsibilities, less sleep, and no guarantees, like assembling a flat-pack furniture from IKEA, except you've lost half the instructions along the way. Story 37. That working hard, putting in hours, and sacrificing my life outside of work would advance my career. No, jump ship every 3 to 5 years and negotiate a few bucks over your current hourly rate. You deserve it. Story 38. When I was younger, I knew that humanity was going to make it to the stars, that we would eventually unify as a species and really take the big steps forward towards a multiplanetary society. Now I just hope whoever comes after us can do better. Story 39. I used to believe a significant revolution or societal change could be achieved through voting and petitioning. I used to believe all people had to do was read and be taught to open their eyes to the reality of our situation. I no longer believe in any of that. If we want change, it has to come from a small group of exceptionally competent leaders of revolution. A vast majority of people are incompetent at best and foolish at worst. The flock needs to be led. People must be governed ruthlessly by someone who believes in the potential of nature, technology, and humanity. Story 40. That the world is dreary, dark, and depressing, and humanity is completely selfish and wicked. Turns out, none of that is true. The world simply is, and humanity is capable of great evil and equally great good. It is the individual who can be either good or evil. Most often, some degree of both. Story 41. I used to believe that decisions made by others don't exist until the decision is announced. Now I realize it's probably made a while before it is announced. Story 42. That the people who talk about a good work ethic spoke from a place of good work ethic. Now I'm surrounded by people who demand office presence and work culture and talk about how nobody wants to work anymore, but who also can't respond to more than one question per email, loop people in on email chains that were resolved 2 days ago, spend an entire meeting talking about absolute nonsense instead of one single work item, and have no idea about the processes of their own systems. Just a bunch of middle-aged people who spend their entire workday arguing with other middle-aged people about who can get the least work done and bring all projects to a grinding halt. The only thing that energizes them is showing up to seminars they don't need to attend, just to publicly criticize some poor PhD student. Story 43. Climbing the corporate ladder is worth it. It's not worth it. You toil for a company that will replace you within weeks. Sure, it might be fun, but don't overinvest in something that doesn't value you while ignoring the people who do value you. Story 44. God. I was raised in the Mormon Church, third generation on both sides. Church every Sunday. Youth group and young single adults during the week. Seminary class in the mornings. Family prayer before meals and before bed. Scripture study. All of it. When I was around 19 years old, after years of overt and, retrospectively, internalized homophobia, I realized I was attracted to other women. It was an awful time. I decided to read the Book of Mormon and, as we had been instructed to do, prayed for guidance. We were promised that we would feel the comfort or whispers of the Holy Spirit, that we would be assured of the truth of the church, that we would feel God's love. Nothing. Emptiness. No comfort. No still small voice. No assurance. No divine love. To my mind, both things couldn't be true. I couldn't have been made this way if the church was true. God wouldn't have made it impossible for me to follow his plan, which, according to my patriarchal blessing, was to marry a man and have his children. There was only one truth that I could be certain of. I have never prayed again since that night 17 years ago. Story 45. Scientific materialism. Sure, the scientific method is an impressive tool for creating better models of how things work that have great predictive value, but the worldview that has developed around it is laughably flawed and largely held together with a lot of appeals to authority and hand-waving on the part of those authorities. Story 46. Living together before engagement. I've seen too many posts from marriage-focused women who moved in together prior to engagement, and then their boyfriends dragged their feet, enjoying all the perks of marriage without the commitment. I now believe that moving in should happen after engagement, and then take at least a year of living together before setting a date and making marriage plans. Story 47. Used to be all about the everything happens for a reason mindset. Now, I kind of think some things just happen because life is random and chaotic, and that's okay. Still trying to make sense of it all though. Story 48. I used to believe in karma. I thought when people consistently do bad things, it catches up with them, and they end up being punished in some way. I no longer believe this. Story 49. I used to believe that helping others leads to being helped, but that's not how it works at all. 30% of people will stab you in the back the millisecond they get the chance, either by taking your credit or blaming you for something you didn't do or cause, like a project taking longer. 30% of people will simply not realize you helped them. 30% of people will realize but not reciprocate, and the remaining 10% will say a meager thank you and then move on. Story 50. I really used to believe that working hard and doing the right thing would lead to a decent life. What a fool. Just an absolute moron sucker. Morality has no external reward. Story 51. I remember trying to teach or reach women clients who were in an abusive relationship to stop trying to explain and reason with a man who punches, etc. That's how I feel now with the Trump supporters, the punchers. Reason is lost. Story 52. Money. Told from an early age to be successful. You can have a nice house, kids get a lot, schools, etc. I did it, but money isn't everything. Always admired guys who worked hard, yet made it to all the games and really did love being a husband and father. Not just a wealthy business guy.